Ever thought you could have a lush garden in the shade? It might seem like a riddle, but the answer is a resounding yes. Welcome to the world of shade gardening, a horticultural haven where the sun's rays don't dictate the beauty of your garden. Shade gardening is a unique approach that focuses on cultivating plants that thrive in low-light conditions. It's not just about making the best out of a shady situation, but about embracing and celebrating the shade as a canvas for a luscious, vibrant garden. There's a certain allure to shade gardens. They offer a sense of tranquility and serenity that sunlit gardens can't quite match. Picture a quiet corner of your yard, dappled in light and shadow, where the hustle and bustle of the world seem to melt away. That's the magic of shade gardening. But don't be fooled into thinking that shade gardening is a walk in a dimly lit park. It's a whole new realm of gardening with its own set of rules. It's about understanding the different types of shade, from partial to full, and everything in between, and choosing the right plants that can flourish in them. Yes, you heard it right. Not all plants crave sunlight. Some prefer the cool, calming embrace of the shade. These are the plants that we'll be focusing on, the ones that transform those shadowy corners of your garden into vibrant pockets of life. Shade gardening also opens up exciting opportunities for creativity. Imagine designing a garden that plays with light and shadow, texture and color, height and depth. A garden that isn't just a collection of plants, but a carefully crafted piece of living art. The beauty of shade gardening lies in its versatility. Whether you live in a bustling city with towering buildings that block out the sun, or a quaint countryside home nestled between tall trees, shade gardening offers you the chance to create a tranquil oasis right at your doorstep. Now that you know what shade gardening is, let's delve into the world of shade-loving plants. Prepare to be amazed by the variety of foliage and flowers that could transform your garden into a flourishing paradise even under the canopy of shade. Did you know that many plants actually thrive in low-light conditions? Yes, it's true. The world of shade-loving plants is vibrant, diverse, and absolutely captivating. Let's dive in and explore some of these shadowy stars. First up, we have ferns, the ancient dwellers of the forest floor. Ferns are truly a testament to the beauty of simplicity. Their delicate fronds, each a work of natural art, create a tapestry of green in the understory. From the elegant maidenhair fern, with its soft lacy foliage, to the robust Boston fern, these plants offer a myriad of textures and shapes that can add depth and interest to your shade garden. Next, let's talk about hostas, the queens of the shade garden. Hostas are prized for their lush foliage, which comes in a wide range of shapes, sizes, and colors. Some hostas feature broad, heart-shaped leaves, while others sport slender, pointed foliage. And let's not forget about their colors. From bright chartreuse to deep blue-green and even varieties with variegated leaves, hostas can provide a stunning color contrast in your low-light garden. On to hydrangeas, the showstoppers of the shade. Hydrangeas are truly breathtaking, with their large, billowing clusters of flowers that can range in color from pink to blue, depending on the soil's acidity. But it's not just their blooms that are impressive. Hydrangeas also have beautiful foliage that can add a touch of elegance to your garden. Now, if you're looking for a pop of color in your shade garden, impatiens are the way to go. These charming little plants produce a profusion of blooms in a rainbow of colors, from bright reds and pinks to soft whites and purples. And the best part? Impatiens bloom all summer long, providing a constant source of color and brightness in your shade garden. Last but certainly not least, we have begonias. Begonias are truly versatile plants that thrive in the shadows. They offer a wide variety of leaf shapes and colors, from the distinctive angel wing begonia with its asymmetrical leaves to the Rex begonia, known for its stunning multicolored foliage. And let's not forget about their flowers. Begonias produce delicate blooms in shades of pink, red, or white, adding an extra layer of beauty to these already stunning plants. These are just a few examples of the wide variety of plants that can thrive in low-light conditions. Each of these shade-loving plants brings something unique to the table, whether it's their distinctive foliage, their vibrant blooms, or their interesting shapes and textures. And the best part? They all love the shade. So even if your garden doesn't get a lot of sunlight, you can still create a lush, vibrant oasis filled with beautiful plants. But remember, it's not just about picking the right plants, it's also about understanding their needs and providing the right conditions for them to thrive. So before you start planting, take some time to learn about the specific requirements of each plant. This way, you can ensure that your shade-loving plants will not only survive but flourish in your garden. So there you have it. From ferns to hostas, hydrangeas to impatiens, and begonias to countless others, the world of shade-loving plants is filled with possibilities. Each of these plants has its own unique beauty and character, and together, they can create a stunning display of color, texture, and life in your shade garden. With such a variety of shade-loving plants, designing your garden becomes an exciting adventure. So go ahead, step into the shadows, and discover the secret garden that's waiting for you. So you have your plants, but how do you arrange them to create a visually appealing garden? Designing with shade plants is all about understanding the nuances of your garden's light levels and working with the natural rhythm of the space. A successful shade garden design is one that showcases the unique beauty of shade-loving plants while creating a serene and tranquil atmosphere. The first step in designing your shade garden is to take note of the different light levels. Observe your garden at different times of the day to understand where the sun hits and where the shadows fall. This will help you determine the right plants for the right spots. Now let's dive into the art of arranging your plants. A key aspect to consider is the height of your plants. Think of your garden as a stage, and your plants as performers. Just as you wouldn't place the tallest actor in the front row, you don't want your tallest plants overshadowing the smaller ones. Start with the tallest plants at the back of the garden or against a wall or fence. This might include taller ferns, hydrangeas, or even a small tree like a Japanese maple. Next, come your medium-height plants. These might include hostas or astilbes. Finally, your shortest plants, like impatiens or begonias, should be at the front, ensuring each plant is visible and can bask in its share of the spotlight. But height isn't the only factor to consider. You also want to think about the texture, shape, and color of your plants. Create visual interest by mixing and matching these elements. For instance, the broad solid leaves of a hosta contrast beautifully with the delicate fronds of a fern, or the vibrant blooms of impatiens can add a pop of color against the lush green of a hydrangea. Repetition is another design principle that can add harmony and cohesion to your shade garden. By repeating certain plants or color schemes throughout the garden, you create a sense of unity, but be careful not to overdo it. You want repetition, not monotony. Borders and pathways can also play a significant role in your garden design. They help to define the space and guide the viewer's eye through the garden. Consider using shade-loving ground cover plants like sweet woodruff or dead nettle to create interesting borders. Remember, a shade garden is not just about the plants. It's also about creating a tranquil and inviting space. Consider adding a bench or a garden statue, or create a focal point with a bird bath or a small fountain. These elements can add a touch of personality and charm to your garden. When designing your shade garden, don't be afraid to experiment. Try different combinations and arrangements. What works in one garden might not work in another. And that's okay. The important thing is to create a garden that reflects your style and brings you joy. Lastly, be patient. A garden is not created in a day. It takes time for plants to grow and for your design to come into its own. But with careful planning and a bit of creativity, you can create a shade garden that is not only visually stunning, but also a peaceful retreat from the hustle and bustle of daily life. With these design tips, your shade garden will be a visual delight, but how do you ensure it stays that way? Like any garden, your shade garden requires care and maintenance to keep it looking its best. When it comes to tending a shade garden, the key is to understand the specific needs of your shade-loving plants. These lovely greens might shy away from the sun, but that doesn't mean they don't need your attention. Let's talk about watering first. Shade plants generally need less water than their sun-loving counterparts, largely because the shade helps to reduce evaporation. But just like with any plant, too little or too much water can be harmful. So how do you find that sweet spot? A good rule of thumb is to water when the top inch of soil feels dry to the touch. Early morning is the best time to water, as it reduces evaporation and prevents the growth of fungus that could thrive in damp, shadowy conditions. Now let's move on to fertilizing. Shade plants are a bit like Goldilocks. They need their nutrients to be just right. Too much fertilizer can lead to lots of leafy growth but few blooms, while too little can lead to weak, undernourished plants. A balanced, slow-release fertilizer applied in the early spring and again in midsummer should do the trick. Remember, it's better to under-fertilize than overdo it. And yes, even in the shade, pests and diseases can be a problem. Slugs, snails, and certain types of insects are particularly fond of the cool, moist conditions of a shade garden. Regularly inspect your plants for signs of damage, and deal with any issues promptly. Use organic or eco-friendly pest control methods whenever possible to keep your garden safe and sustainable. Diseases can also be a challenge in shade gardens. Fungi love the damp and dark and can quickly spread if not kept in check. Again, regular inspections are key. If you spot any discolored or spotted leaves, remove them immediately to prevent the spread of disease. And remember, prevention is better than cure. Ensure your plants have enough space for air circulation, and avoid watering late in the day to keep the leaves dry overnight. Now, let's talk about light. Yes, we're dealing with shade plants, but that doesn't mean they don't need light. The trick is to match your plants to the type of shade in your garden. There's a big difference between full shade, where direct sunlight is virtually absent, and partial or dappled shade, where the sun peeks through for a few hours each day. For full shade areas, consider plants like ferns and hostas. They thrive in these conditions and can add a lush green feel to your garden. For partial shade, you have a wider range of options. Hydrangeas, impatiens, and begonias are all great choices, offering a splash of color to brighten up your shady spots. Dappled shade, with its mix of sun and shade throughout the day, is ideal for many shade plants. Just remember, no plant is truly no light, so ensure every plant gets at least a little bit of sunlight each day. In conclusion, caring for a shade garden is all about understanding and meeting the needs of your plants. With the right amount of water, the correct balance of nutrients, ongoing pest and disease management, and a careful consideration of light levels, your shade garden can thrive. And remember, the beauty of gardening lies not only in the end result, but also in the journey of nurturing and tending your plants. Your garden is now set up and maintained, but how about some creative ideas to make it even more unique? Adding a touch of creativity can make your shade garden truly stand out. In this segment, we'll explore some imaginative ways to incorporate shade-loving plants into your outdoor spaces. From container gardens to hanging baskets and woodland garden themes, we'll delve into a world of possibilities. First up, let's talk about container gardens. Containers are an excellent way to experiment with different plant combinations and create a portable display. You can choose from a wide variety of containers, from traditional flower pots to more unique and repurposed items like old watering cans or even boots. The key is to group plants with similar light and water requirements. For instance, you can pair hostas with ferns, offering a delightful contrast of textures. Next, we venture into the world of hanging baskets. They're a fantastic way to add vertical interest to your shade garden. They can be hung from tree branches, porch roofs, or even shepherd's hooks, strategically placed throughout your garden. Fuchsias, begonias, and impatiens are all excellent choices for hanging baskets. They bring a splash of color to the shadiest corners of your garden, creating a vibrant, cascading effect. Now let's consider a woodland garden theme. This style of garden is designed to emulate the natural growth and beauty found in a forest setting. Here you can use shade-loving plants such as ferns, bleeding hearts, and Solomon's seal to create layers and texture. To enhance the woodland feel, consider adding elements like moss-covered rocks, rustic wooden benches, or a small water feature. This can create a tranquil, forest-like retreat right in your backyard. Another creative idea is to create a shade-loving ground cover. Instead of letting the ground in your shade garden lay bare, why not cover it with low-growing, shade-tolerant plants? Consider sweet woodruff, dead nettle, or creeping jenny. These plants spread out to form a lush, living carpet that not only looks stunning but also helps to suppress weeds. Don't forget about the magic of garden art and accessories. Even in the shade, a well-placed statue, birdbath, or garden gnome can add a touch of whimsy or elegance. These elements can serve as focal points or can help to tie your garden design together. And finally, let's not overlook the power of color. While it's true that shade gardens often lean towards a palette of greens and whites, there are plenty of shade-loving plants that can introduce a pop of color. From the vibrant blues of hydrangeas to the fiery reds of some types of Japanese maples, your shade garden doesn't have to be restricted to a monochrome scheme. Remember, the key to a successful shade garden is understanding your space, getting to know the plants that thrive in shade, and not being afraid to get creative. There are no hard and fast rules. What matters most is that your garden is a place of joy and serenity for you. With these creative ideas, your shade garden will be a unique oasis. Let's recap what we've learned today. Today, we've embarked on an exciting journey into the world of shade gardening, a realm where tranquil beauty blooms, even in the quiet corners where the sun seldom reaches. We've peeled back the leaves of misconception and shone a light on the vibrant life that exists in the shadows. To begin, we introduced the enchanting concept of shade gardening, an opportunity for garden enthusiasts to transform lesser-lit areas into serene spaces of foliage and blooms. Shade gardening is not a compromise, but rather a unique avenue to explore diverse textures, shapes, and colors that thrive in low-light conditions. Next, we delved into the heart of shade gardens, the shade-loving plants. We discovered a vibrant array of species, each with its own charm. From the delicate fronds of ferns to the broad leaves of hostas, the lush blooms of hydrangeas, the vibrant colors of impatiens, and the impressive versatility of begonias. Each of these plants offers a unique contribution to the tapestry of a shade garden, proving that low light doesn't equate to low beauty. We then ventured into the art of designing with shade plants. We learned about the importance of layering plants based on height, creating depth and dimension in the garden. We highlighted the role of contrast and repetition in creating visual interest, ensuring our gardens are not just lush, but also visually engaging. Transitioning to the practical side of shade gardening, we discussed the care and maintenance of our shade-loving friends. We emphasized the importance of watering, fertilizing, and managing common pests and diseases. We learned that understanding the varying levels of shade, partial shade, full shade, dappled shade, plays a crucial role in selecting the right plants and ensuring their health and growth. Finally, we sparked our creativity with unique ideas for incorporating shade-loving plants into our outdoor spaces. We envisioned container gardens brimming with shade-loving plants, hanging baskets filled with cascading foliage, and woodland garden themes that transport us into a magical forest right in our backyards. Our journey today has been one of discovery and inspiration, taking us into the heart of a garden's shaded corners and revealing the vibrant life that thrives there. We've learned that shade gardening is not just about growing plants, but about creating an oasis of tranquility, a haven of natural beauty, a secret garden that flourishes in the shadows. With the knowledge you've gained today, you're ready to create your own lush oasis in the shade. Happy gardening!